What if everything we were taught about the invention of electricity was wrong? In 1936, a German archaeologist was sorting through ancient artifacts near Baghdad when he found something that had no business existing. Small clay jars, copper cylinders, iron rods, sealed together with asphalt. On the surface, they looked like ordinary pottery, unremarkable, forgotten. But when a scientist later filled one with vinegar, a liquid the ancient world used every single day, something extraordinary happened. It generated electricity, not metaphorically, not theoretically, measurable, actual electric current. These jars are over 2,000 years old, and nobody, not a single ancient text, not one carved inscription, not one whispered legend ever explained what they were for. So here's the question that has haunted scientists, historians, and archaeologists for nearly a century. Did ancient humans discover electricity 2,000 years before we thought they did? Stay with me, because the answer is more unsettling than you think. To understand why this discovery shook the academic world to its core, we need to travel back, not to a grand palace, not to a battlefield, but to a quiet dig site on the outskirts of Baghdad, Iraq, in the year 1936. The location was called Kujut Rabu, a modest archaeological site, largely overlooked by the grand excavations of the era. Wilhelm Koenig, a German archaeologist working with the Iraq Museum, was cataloging pottery and artifacts, the routine, unglamorous work that fills most of an archaeologist's career. And then, buried among objects dating to the Parthian period, roughly 250 BC to 224 AD, he found them. Small, unassuming, clay jars roughly the size of your fist. But inside each one was something deeply out of place. A copper cylinder, carefully shaped, an iron rod suspended through its center, the entire assembly sealed at the top with asphalt, like someone wanted to make sure nothing got in or nothing got out. Koenig stared at what was in front of him. He had seen thousands of ancient artifacts, but these were different, because he recognized the design, not from ancient history, from a physics textbook. The configuration, a metal rod inside a metal cylinder, insulated and enclosed, was the exact structural blueprint of a galvanic cell, the same fundamental design Alessandro Volta used to create the first modern battery in 1800 AD, except these jars were 2,000 years older. Here's where the story stops being curious and starts being deeply, genuinely unsettling. Koenig published his findings, and when other scientists read them, many initially dismissed the idea. Ancient peoples generating electricity? It sounded like fantasy, like science fiction dressed up in archaeological clothing. The consensus of the academic world was firm. Electricity was a modern discovery. It had a timeline. It had names attached to it. Benjamin Franklin, Alessandro Volta, Michael Faraday. The story was settled. But the jars didn't care about the consensus. In the 1940s, American engineer Willard Gray decided to test the theory directly. He built a replica of the Baghdad Battery using the same materials available in the ancient world, copper, iron, and a clay vessel, and filled it with grape juice, an acidic liquid common in ancient Mesopotamia. It produced approximately half a volt of electricity. Half a volt, sustained, measurable, reproducible. Later replicas using vinegar produced voltages between 0.8 and 2 volts. That is enough current to perform electroplating, enough to coat a metal object in a thin layer of gold or silver without heat, without fire, just chemistry and current. And here is the detail that makes historians go quiet. Archaeologists have found ancient artifacts in the region with inexplicably thin, extraordinarily uniform metal coatings that modern analysis cannot fully explain through conventional ancient techniques. The jars weren't just a theory anymore. They were a possibility too precise to dismiss. So who built these batteries, and how? The Parthian Empire stretched across modern-day Iraq and Iran, a civilization of traders, craftsmen, and scholars who sat at the crossroads of East and West. They inherited knowledge from the Babylonians, traded ideas with the Greeks, and maintained one of the most sophisticated metalworking cultures of the ancient world. These were not primitive people. They were skilled, innovative, and deeply practical. Imagine the workshops of ancient Mesopotamia, the air thick with the smell of molten copper and burning charcoal. Craftsmen bent over their work by firelight, hammering and shaping metals with a precision that still impresses modern metallurgists. These artisans didn't write down their trade secrets. Knowledge was passed hand to hand, master to apprentice, whispered and demonstrated, never committed to clay tablets where rivals could steal it. If someone had discovered, even accidentally, that certain combinations of metals and acidic liquids created a mysterious invisible force, would they have written it down? Or would they have guarded it like the most valuable trade secret in the empire? The absence of written records is not proof it didn't happen. In the ancient world, the most powerful knowledge was often the most hidden. Multiple jars were found at the site. Not one, not two, multiple, suggesting this wasn't a single accident. It was a practice, a craft, something done repeatedly, deliberately, by hands that understood on some level exactly what they were creating. And now we arrive at the most explosive part of this story, the part that divides historians into two fierce camps, and has never been fully resolved. In the 1970s, German Egyptologist Arne Egebrecht took a replica Baghdad Battery and used it to electroplate a silver statuette with a thin layer of gold. The process worked flawlessly, and then he made a claim that sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. He suggested that many of the gold-plated artifacts found in ancient Egyptian tombs may have actually been electroplated. If true, it meant that electroplating, a technique officially credited to the 19th century, had been practiced for over 2 millennia before its supposed invention. The scientific community erupted. Skeptics fired back hard. They argued the jars could have been used for storing sacred scrolls, that the metallic components were coincidental, that the voltages produced were too weak for practical use at scale. Some proposed the jars were simply used for fermenting wine or storing medicinal herbs. Ordinary, explainable, safe. But then came the test that silenced even some of the loudest critics. In 1999, researchers at the Rosicrucian Museum in San Jose built yet another replica, this time matching the exact dimensions and materials of the original artifact. With a simple acidic solution, it generated a consistent, stable electrical current. 2,000 years old. And it still worked. Today, the original Baghdad batteries rest in the Iraq Museum in Baghdad when they are accessible. The Gulf War, the 2003 invasion, and years of regional instability have made their preservation a story of survival all on its own. For a time, many feared they were among the thousands of artifacts looted or destroyed. They endured, quietly waiting, as they always have, for someone to finally understand them. The debate has never been formally closed. No consensus has been reached, and that ambiguity is, perhaps, the most honest conclusion history can offer us. What the Baghdad Battery forces us to confront is something deeply uncomfortable: the idea that human ingenuity is not a straight line moving forward. Civilizations rise and fall, and take their knowledge with them. Libraries burn. Craftsmen die without passing on their secrets. Empires collapse and bury their discoveries under centuries of sand and silence. The ancient world was not filled with simple people waiting for modernity to arrive and enlighten them. It was filled with curious, brilliant, inventive human beings just like us, who looked at the world around them and tried to understand it. Perhaps the most profound lesson of the Baghdad Battery is this: discovery does not belong to any one era. The capacity for brilliance has always been inside us, and somewhere beneath the deserts of the ancient world, there may be other secrets still waiting, patient, buried, and electric with possibility. So I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments below. Do you believe the Baghdad Battery was used to generate electricity in the ancient world? Or do you think it's the most remarkable coincidence in archaeological history? Because that question has split experts for nearly a century, and I don't think there's one clean answer. I think the truth lives somewhere in the space between what we can prove and what we simply cannot explain away. If this story made you see ancient history differently, hit that like button. It truly helps this channel bring more hidden stories like this one to light. Subscribe if you want to go deeper, because next time we're uncovering another ancient mystery that modern science still cannot fully explain. The past is never as settled as we think. See you in the next one.